Hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of the ParentCamp Podcast. I am April Draine. Today we are continuing our conversation of all things Parent Camp, and we utilize the voices from the community. We have two guests today. One is not a guest. Well, really, neither one are guests because they speak Parent Camp. They are Parent Camp. We have today Miss Julie Pile and our special guest, Mr. Jay Posick. Can you guys say hello to our audience today?
Hey,
Hello, everybody.
Awesome,
hello, everybody.
awesome.
Welcome back.
Yay! So I'm going to let Julie and Jay just jump straight in because Julie is all things relationship. If you all have heard our previous episodes, you know Julie knows everyone. And if you have not caught on yet, Julie, she is all things relationships, and everyone she connects to Parent Camp, they bring such wonderful gifts. So Mr. J has some great background, but I want to first start off with just saying, how did you all meet? How Jay became part of Parent Camp, and then I have a couple of questions that I want to bring into the discussion because Jay has a very diverse background that I'm sure our listeners can very well benefit from. So let's just start from the beginning, though. Julie, how did you and Jay meet?
Um, Actually, as you were just talking, April, I reflected back a little bit. We probably actually originally met on Twitter. Wouldn't you
That's
think?
correct.
Yeah, I was thinking the book study Beyond the Bake Sale, Boxer book study, but then when I was just thinking, it's like, no, we actually connected a long time ago on Twitter. So it's prior to 2014 when we did the book study. If you listen to one of the previous episodes with April, I talked about the um, Beyond the Bake Sale. We had a global book study where I think there's about 100 of us, Jay.
Yep, that's about right.
Yeah, from all over the world, and every week we read a chapter of the book Beyond the Bake Sale by Ann Henderson and Karen Mapp, and I'm sure April's going to drop that link in the show notes there. But it's kind of considered the Bible of family engagement, and so there was a group of us that really connected on this book study, and we continued a separate kind of conversation using the tool Voxer. And I would say, gosh, it's been 10 years now because that was 2014. And so Jay and I just, we've been part of this group that we've celebrated everybody's successes and lifted each other up for the last 10 years. And it could be family, it could be, birthdays. We're always piping in and wishing everybody happy birthday and just sharing experiences just from our life. I mean, we've all become really good friends. We actually did an in-person meetup at the NAFSCI Family Engagement Conference in Chicago. Was that 2015, Jay?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so we all met in person for the first time at this conference, at the NAFSCI conference, and just have all stayed in touch and been friends since then.
Yeah, I remember presenting at that conference. That was that the first time we actually. I mean, we had heard of each other, but not seen each other. So it was interesting as we gathered in the hotel lobby, and that's what you look like. I thought you were taller. I thought you were shorter. All those things that go through your head when it's just a profile picture that you see on Twitter or on Voxer. So it was quite an experience for sure.
So, Julie, we know that you've had experience from the parent side, from being PTO and being involved with your kids on the early side, and then you and Laura eventually came up with the idea of Parent Camp. But with Jay, you actually have had experience within the school system, correct? You were once
Yes, I was a principal. I was a 35-year educator, retired in 2022, but as we've discussed a little bit on the side there, my retirement really didn't last very long. But I was 15 years as a classroom teacher, second through eighth grade. And then I was 5 years as an assistant principal in a middle school that was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then I was a principal for 15 years in a school that was either 4th through 8th grade or 5th through 8th grade, depending upon the school year. And one of the things that I moved into the community where I was principal. So literally I have a mile and a quarter to get from my house to the school. I can't see the school from where I live, which was probably good, but I can definitely get there pretty quickly if I need to. So I was always on call if there was a concern about security or those different sorts of things. I was the first one on the list to be called. So all of that kind of fun stuff. But my daughter was a student while I was one of the students at school for 5 years while I was a principal, and now she's currently a fifth grade teacher just down the road from us.
Oh,
So
wow.
one of the things that I really tried to impress upon the community and the families in our district was the need to communicate more consistently than just at parent-teacher conferences or at concerts or at sporting events, those different sorts of things. Because those conversations are great, but they're more one-on-one, and just trying to find ways to have more of an open dialogue. And I could never really figure out the way to do that. Actually, I did a book study on Beyond the Bake Sale with about 12 family members of our school and had some great ideas, but then as with all good ideas, sometimes they fizzle out and you have to go in a different direction because either the people that are involved get burned out or the message just doesn't seem to sit the way that you wanted it to. So I really wanted to find more ways to get parents involved, and I was happy when Julie reached out and knew that I was getting close to retirement to say, hey, would you like to be a coach in ParentCamp? And it didn't take me long to say yes. In fact, I remember the interview, Julie. I was on my way, an hour-long drive from my house in Merton, Wisconsin to Fox Lake, Wisconsin, where my brother-in-law has a place. And we did a Google chat while I was driving, to make sure that I was going to be, that I was going to be a good fit and would be someone that could help ParentCamp continue to move forward. So she was one of the first people to know that I was retiring. She actually knew before my family did, because I wanted to make sure I had something in place so they realized that I wasn't going to retire and then sit on my backside and do nothing for the rest of my born days. So so that's kind of how that all worked out. And then got to travel to Delaware and see ParentCamp in action. And then fortunately, I've got two schools that I have the pleasure of working with, Positive Outcomes just outside of Dover, and Sussex Montessori, both in the state of Delaware. So this Wisconsin guy travels to Delaware a few times a year, and just I enjoy it more than I so look forward to those trips and just reconnecting in person with the people and the schools and the families and the community members that come out to parent camps.
Now that is engagement on a whole nother level. To not only move, because you mentioned that when you were the principal, you said you moved into the neighborhood of where your school was, and even before you retired, you wanted to make sure that you still continue engagement in some form. And Julie was, of course, a great connection because that's what she does. She builds relationships that eventually. And even if you're a listener, I promise you, if you get close to Julie, she may pull you in some kind of way. So just beware.
I will help you find your place.
That is one of her superpowers. So that is awesome that you already, as a principal and a teacher, you were trying to build engagement and you were trying to build. You saw some needs, you saw some things within the school system, but then simultaneously, Julie and Laura are working on ParentCamp, trying to build family engagement in a community. So to come in as a principal with that expertise and to come in with the teaching expertise and even on the retired side, I'm interested to know, what are some things that you've seen since working as a ParentCamp coach, facilitator on this side of it that you wish probably you could have integrated or you could have utilized, or maybe principals who are now listening saying, hey, what is ParentCamp? You as a principal, what are some of the things that ParentCamp does that maybe we can benefit from at this very moment?
Sure. So there's two things that really stick out to me. The first one is making sure that you have a team put in place that can help, because no one person can be in charge of all communication. It doesn't work. So the fact that when you get together, when ParentCamp comes into your school, they help you develop a team and train a team to be people that are outreach for your school. This is going to sound really bad for me to say on this podcast, but I wish it was called Family Camp instead of Parent Camp, because the other thing that I notice, and this is not the second part of that, but the other thing I notice is families look different. In every school that I go to, it's not always a mom and a dad. It's not always a mom. It's not always a dad. There's grandparents. There's aunts and uncles. All different sorts of people that are raising our kids. And Parent Camp, yes, it sounds great, but then the one thing that Julie and Laura always do when they start out with the introduction, when we start out introducing on those evenings, is we talk about what a parent is. And it doesn't necessarily have to be mom. It doesn't necessarily have to be dad. It can be grandma. It can be grandpa. Whoever that person happens. It could be brother. Could be sister. So those are the kinds of things that I wish I had done. One of those is just having a team that was with me to help move that communication tool forward. And the second thing I think is really important is the circle that we get in for discussions.
Yeah.
Because with a circle, there's no one focus, right? Everybody's a focus when you're in a circle. If it was somebody standing in front of a group of people, like we do with our introduction, so we actually go against the Parent Camp rule of having a circle when we're introducing how you parent camp and when we talk about debriefing at the end. But those sessions, when you see people get together in a circle and the conversation flows because there's one really good guiding question that just starts things off. It's a facilitator. It's not necessarily an expert on the topic. They just want to talk about whatever it happens to be. And one of the topics that we're going to have at our Parent Camp next week at Positive Outcomes is what are your hopes and dreams for your child? And interestingly, my daughter's first opportunity for parent-teacher conferences is tonight. And I told her to have a piece of paper for each parent that while they're waiting in the hallway to come in and talk about their child, they fill out a form about their hopes and dreams for their child in 5th grade. So she said, Dad, that's a really deep question. I said, it is a deep question, but it's a lot better than what's your goal? You know what I mean? Goal just seems to have an end point, and hopes and dreams can go on forever.
Yeah.
I love that. Is that a Jay original or is that a Parent Camp tool?
What, the hopes and dreams?
Yeah.
The hopes and dreams, I'm not going to take credit for it, but I do know that I asked teachers about that a few years back, and one of our 5th grade teachers, she said, Jay, is it okay if I use that for open house? And I said, what do you mean? Use what? She said, that hopes and dreams. I want to put that piece of paper on every kid's desk in my classroom and have the parents write down their hopes and dreams for their kids so that when their kid comes in on the first day of school, they can see what their parents' hopes and dreams are for them. So it's just...
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I get some goosebumps right now when I'm thinking about that because it really has had a profound impact on so many families. Just those 2 little simple words that make you think about what you want to have happen for your kid.
Yeah. Yep.
My brain is just, to have a kid, like, it's one thing to, and I'm kind of with your daughter that on one end, that does feel heavy, but then when you put it into perspective, this is something that will allow your children to see, or in your case, that's what they did for open house at the school. But for the children to be able to see something in writing from the parent, this is something my parents dream for me or hope for me. And I like the fact that you mentioned it's not a goal, which has an end point. Oh, I'm trying to figure out how I can utilize that here at the house, just for my own kids. They're in high school, but I love that idea. So I'm grateful for these moments when we get to engage with new guests, or you're not a guest, Jay. You're so Parent Camp. But when we're talking about the episode for Parent Camp recording, I'm appreciative because you were a principal, and yet you're still. Am I correct? You're still doing some principal work these days, even after retirement.
Yes, I'm a part-time assistant principal in a neighboring district. Last year, my part-time role was 8 hours a week, so I worked 2 half days. And this year, my part-time role is 4 hours, so I work. I can work 1 hour for 4 straight days, or 4 hours on one day, like I did yesterday. It's just I have a great deal of flexibility, and the school that I'm working with had some issues with students not using their Chromebooks properly. So I get to be the one who gets to talk to all those students who may have, had an accident or intentionally damaged their Chromebook and start building a relationship with them. And many of them, this is the 3rd year that I've been in that school, so all the kids who are 8th graders know who I am. They expect that I'm going to wear a bow tie on Tuesday, and if I don't, they remind me that I'm supposed to wear a bow tie on Tuesday. That's just that's one of my things, right? So, but it's just connecting with students I yesterday I had 5 students to see for Chromebook repair sorts of things. So at 7:30 I started finding kids. By 8 o'clock I was done, and then for the last 3 hours and 15 minutes or so, I was hopping into classrooms and engaging with students and staff and doing lunch and recess duty. My former superintendent called me the highest paid cafeteria and recess supervisor in the entire state of Wisconsin. And I said to him, so explain to me how many discipline issues happen during lunch and recess when I'm there. And he said, well, I can't remember one. And I said, the only time that there's issues are when you send me to a conference, or I decide that I'm going to go to a conference and you replace me, and then you can't do what I do. So that's just kind of how it is, right? So, but the connections that you can make outside of the classroom with the kids, still within the school day, it definitely has a big impact. I'm not the best all-time quarterback or the best all-time pitcher in kickball, but I sure enjoy doing it.
Jay, you're a gift.
Yeah,
Yeah, Julie, jump in there because my brain is going in 30 different directions, but yeah, jump in for sure.
I mean, wouldn't you have loved to have had Jay as your principal? I mean,
I know. That's what I'm listening. Like, wait, the bow tie and okay, but Jay, were you this cool as a principal? I mean, I know you're flexible now with retirement on this side of it, but were you this engaged as a principal and a teacher during those 35 years that you were in the educational side?
So I have a wristband that I'm wearing that I've worn. I was fortunate enough to write a book with a couple of other principals, one from Minnesota, one from California, and it was called Principals in Action. And the subtitle was Get Out of Your Office. So I've got a bracelet on that right now says Get Out of Your Office. And every time I connect with a principal, I have extra bracelets and make sure that I give them one just to talk about that because frankly, the only thing you're going to do if you sit in your office as a principal is wait for trouble to come to you. So why not get out there and meet it head on, right? So you know the places to be and where things are going to happen. You know when passing time is. You know when lunchtime is. You know when there's a student that maybe didn't have a good morning and you have to check on them in the afternoon. That's just kind of how it was. We had a remodel of our school about 5 years before I retired, and I told the superintendent when they were doing the remodeling process, I said, so I don't want an office in the main office.
Wow.
And he said, well, Jay, unfortunately, you're not going to be principal here forever. So we have to have an office for whoever the next principal is. So I said, okay, well, then it's going to be a little tiny room that doesn't have any access to windows because the windows should be for the classes and for my secretary and the people in the front office. Just put me in the middle of the office so I can get in and out. It has to have 2 doors, one to get into the main office, one to get into the hallway. So that's kind of how it was. And I remember when I was an assistant principal, my office wasn't in the main office. It was in the 8th grade hallway because that's where all the action was.
Wow.
So if I was in my office, it was also connected to the EBD classroom. So when I was not dealing with an EBD student in the office, then I could pop out into the hallway and see all of the action that was going on. And they could see me because there was one of those mirrors like you can see around a corner with that was at the corner. So they knew when I was standing there and they knew when I wasn't. When I was standing there, the behaviors were pretty darn good, So, but you have to be out and about, and you can't just be there and be this mean presence. You have to connect with kids. So, yesterday I sat down next to a 6th grade boy who's all at a table all by himself, and I said, "Hey, where are your friends? Are you going to be sitting with some friends today?" And he looked at me and said, "Well, they're all in line getting hot lunch. I brought them their lunch today." So, sorry about that. That must be something important on ESPN just came through. Anyways, it's just, in order to have conversations and make connections with kids, you can't be in your office to do that. Because how many of you, Julie and April, were you ever scared to go to the principal's office when you were in school?
That part.
Yeah.
That part,
Yeah. I mean, there's when I would say to students, okay, we're going to head to my office and talk about this, they knew that it was something really important. Because most of the time I can do a conversation in the hallway, do a little 5-minute walk around with a student, get everything organized, and back to class they go. I never called into classes to have students sent down to me. I went and found them, and if I walked in and the teacher's in the middle of explaining something or the students are taking a test, then I walk on to the next room and find somebody else that I can talk to instead. So That's one of the things at the district that I'm currently in. The teachers will stop and say, "Was this how you were as a principal in your former school?" And strangely enough, there are 2 teachers at the current school where I am that used to be teachers of mine when I was
Oh,
when I was
wow.
in Newton. And they're like, "So just so you guys know, that's the real Jay. That's how he was all the time. That's how he's always going to be. So that's just who
I
he is, right?"
love it.
So, yeah.
I love it. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Come through, Jay. Oh, you got me excited. I mean, okay, the engagement. And one, let's go back to the title of the book. Can you please give me the name of that book? We would definitely want to
Yep.
put the link in the show notes.
Yep. It's Principles in Action.
And then
So
did you mention there was a
three words.
subtitle?
Yep. It's Get Out of Your Office.
Yeah. I
Yep.
love it.
So you have to say it correctly, because if you say principles in action, then it sounds like you're not doing anything. So it's 3 words, not just 2. It's not just you know what I mean? So if it's
Yeah.
make sure it's 3 words. Otherwise, people are going to think, oh, that's the guy that just sits behind his desk, or the gal that sits behind his desk and does nothing. So it was a pleasure to write with it was Mark French and Ryan Sheehy are the 2 principals that were the co-authors, and we had a blast writing it and just telling our story about how we do what we do.
Now, do you still have didn't you have a Twitter chat, Principals in Action?
Yes, I had a Twitter chat until I retired, and then that kind of fizzled off. But it used to be a weekly Twitter chat, and it was initially it was really well received, and then I look at like Sat Chat as one that just had been going on forever, and now that's kind of disbanded as well. So sometimes you have to move on to something different, which is just fine. There's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes for a Twitter chat that people don't necessarily know, and then you have to be there live if you're the one who's running the chat.
Yes.
So that became a little bit of an issue for me. So I had to back off, which is completely fine. There's other ways to communicate.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jay, you've attended a number of parent camps now, and I am sure you have stories, like how you've connected with people and how the school people have connected with others. What's been some of your favorite memories so far?
Well, I'm going to go back to the first parent camp I had at Positive Outcomes. We had done the training, I think. We did it off-site in that beautiful building. I can't remember exactly the name of the city where that was, but great training session. And it seemed as if the team was not really sure about how this parent camp thing was going to go. So I showed up, you and I showed up that first night, and you probably could sense that I was a little bit nervous about it was my first coaching gig. It wasn't just I wasn't just an attendee. I was kind of in charge of making sure everything flowed right, and did the introduction. We started doing the sessions. Everything was all done, and we are debriefing as we're cleaning up a little bit in the cafeteria. And all of a sudden, Ed, who's the principal, looked at me and said, "I never thought it would work. This was the most amazing night I have ever had with parents and families in our school. I can't even believe why are we not doing it?" And then he just couldn't stop. And it was like, Julie and I are like, "But we really need to leave because we have to go have some dinner. We're hungry, right?" But it was an amazing, amazing experience. And when we finished our final one in May, we made some realizations that doing a parent camp in the first 3 weeks of a school year is not a good idea. And doing a parent camp 3 weeks before the school year ends is also not a good idea, because there's so many other things that are going on at that time of the year.
Makes sense.
Ed says to us, "I want to do one in October and one in December and one in February and one in April." So I said, all right, let's put those dates together. So we put those 4 dates together, and I'm working with Sussex Montessori. So I shared those dates with them and said, hey, if there's any way that you guys could do the Tuesday before or the Thursday after those Wednesdays, that'd be great. Well, they sat down, and about 2 days later, they said, we will take the Thursday after each one of those. So I got 8 parent camps scheduled in less than 2 weeks, just so that we make sure that I don't have to travel out to Delaware twice. I can travel once and go to 2 different schools. And to be honest with you, the schools are very different. Positive Outcomes is more the older kids, and Sussex Montessori is more the younger kids. I have a lot more experience on the older end of things than I do on the younger end of things. But every one of those parent camps, they have the same goal, and that's to get people talking about whatever topics are of interest to them. So, Positive Outcomes has that Hopes and Dreams session. And Sussex Montessori has the how do you help your kids stay organized session, which everybody can use, not just kids, right? Adults as well. One of the sessions so we had the other thing I'll say is in July I was out there for the Sussex one, and I just threw out I jokingly said, hey, I'm a pretty mean griller. How about we have hot dogs and hamburgers for our meal? And they said, so Kenesha said, well, let's run with it. Well, I show up expecting that I'm going to have to grill. And one of the custodians shows up with this huge, I'm talking huge grill like this. It's got 4 separate grills on a trailer, and he lit one up, and it was all hot dogs and hamburgers, and a crust for the hamburgers. It was amazing, and we had almost 80 people that showed up for that one. There was like 30 kids and 50 adults. It was just amazing, and it was all because it was the summer theme, and let's talk about what we can do. And it was, it's just. You just try out things, and if they work, great. If they don't work, okay, we're going to try something different the next time. So those 2 things I think are the ones that really stick out to me. Is Ed just realizing, hey, this is the real way to do things, and he's spread the word through his social circle of administrators, and then out at Sussex, the smiles on people's faces. Both during dinner and then during the sessions was just amazing, and the depth of conversation that you have in a circle is way beyond what you have in rows. How was that, Julie?
That was awesome. I just remember, I'm going to share Jay's story. So we were leaving Positive Outcomes First Parent Camp, and I forget where we were driving to. We were driving back to a hotel. I forget where we were staying. And Jay looks at me. He's like, is this what it's like after every parent camp, or do you get used to this? I'm like, you get this high after every single one. It's addictive. And guess what? This is what we get to do.
This is what you get to do this. Oh,
Yep.
that's awesome. Yeah. So, Jay, let me ask you as we kind of wrap up, because it's still so much that we can cover, but you've given so many great points already, from the hopes and the dreams and the engagement, and you even as a principal not wanting to be in an office. You wanted your space to be somewhere within the school walls, just so that you could be able to engage with the kids. You have so many different vantage points, and I love your energy and the way that your personality shines through. For principals or parents, or teachers, I'll just say probably teachers and principals, why would ParentCamp be a good tool to have in their toolbox on this side of it? You've seen, I don't want to say your life without ParentCamp, not that it was but you've seen your life before ParentCamp as a principal, and you had the desire to kind of get more parent and community engagement. And then you see this other side where Julie mentions you get to do this. You get to get this high. You get to get this feeling. You get to see the principals. You get to see the community or custodians who bring out their large grills because they see the vision. What is something or a reason that you will give to teachers or principals of why ParentCamp should be a tool in their toolbox?
There's one other story from Positive Outcomes that I think would have a major impact on administrators and educators if they're thinking about ParentCamp. So we get all done with, I sit in on sessions once in a while. I don't like to, because oftentimes if I sit in on a session or Julie sits on a session, it's like, oh, the person running it is here, and let's look at them and see if they're going to give us all the answers or they're going to add things, right? But what I sat and listened to at Positive Outcomes was a group of parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and staff members having a wonderful conversation, not about individual kids, but about the school as a whole and how to make the school better for all kids, not just my kid, but all kids. I mean, when you have individual conversations with the school, and it's the parent talking to the teacher or the administrator, there's one focus and one focus alone, and that's on one kid. With ParentCamp, it's on all kids, it's on all staff, it's on all families. And I think that's probably the most important thing that I could put forward is if you want to find a way to have your school be better, to be looked at better by the community, to be looked at more favorably by families, to be a place where kids want to go, you need to get a parent camp in there and get the conversation started, because those conversations don't just happen during that 2 hours when you have a parent camp on October 23rd or October 24th. Those are the next two that are coming up for the schools that I'm working with in Delaware. But those conversations happen after that, and they lead up to that. So those conversations are the way you're going to make your school better for all kids and for all staff and for all families.
I love it. I love it. Jay, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Even on the retired side, you still took time to spend time with us today. So thank you so much. Thank you for all that you are doing to make Parent Camp be what it is. And thank you for even showing up still for those kids with the bow ties on Tuesdays. Mr. Jay
Absolutely.
with the bow ties. Julie, before we wrap up, let our listeners know how they can stay connected to Parent Camp and our social medias, all the things Parent Camp.
Yeah, so, we're very active on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, even Instagram. Best thing to do is sign up for our newsletter from our website. So if you go to www.parentcamp.org, and click on newsletter, it's up on the menu bar at the top. There's a link to sign up for a newsletter, and that's where you'll get the information about upcoming parent camps. But as I tell people, it's probably only 20% parent camp news and 80% just general articles and information and other events from all of our different partners and sources. So there's a lot of great just information in there to help people parent and connect with schools and community. And it's not just for parents, it's educators and students and stuff too. And then, monthly we hold a virtual parent camp. That information comes out in our newsletter. Anybody is welcome to join us from anywhere across the globe for virtual parent camp. And parent camp's always free for people to attend. So there's never that cost barrier for anyone. This week we actually so if you look at the newsletter, you can see the upcoming virtual parent camps, and you can join us for that. And then, we list all of our upcoming in-person parent camps, and anyone can join any parent camp. You don't have to just be a parent or community member at that school. So if you want to check it out, come and connect with some people, and then get a hold of either Laura or I, and which you can do through our website, or, all of our information is out there. And then if you'd like to have parent camp come to your school, let your principals and your superintendents and your school board members know. And then, we can start the conversation and hopefully start working with your school and bring them on board.
Awesome. Like she said, it is free, but the benefits are priceless. Mm-hmm. Julie, Jay, again, thank you both so much for today's conversation. Thank you so much for, the hopes and dreams. I don't know, we may have to entitle this episode something about the hopes and dreams, but I really appreciate both of you all and this conversation. To our listeners, thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the ParentCamp Podcast. Please continue to support and look out for the Parent Camp. You may see us in your local area very soon. Until next time, have a great one.